shouldn't be watching things like Netflix, okay, or any of these new, or heck, any Disney movie at all. Okay, Disney, Pixar, it's all coming from the same corrupt source. Okay, it's called Judaism.
Yeah, in Canada, if someone's trying to kill you, you can't kill them in self-defense with any weapon. Like you're just expected to run away and hope you escape or something.
Don't really know what they're doing. They just pick up a cause because their life is empty and they grab onto something and they go and try to be advocates for that. I mean, how much pollution and destruction was there in the past BLM riots? You know, that was a few years ago.
Paul seems to think Antifa happened because women were bored, I guess. Like, he thinks the BLM riots happened because women, God, their lives are just so empty, so they just latched on to anything.
Let me tell you who wasn't there. Black men. It was white women. Like, I understand.
One of the main things that I really wanted to avoid doing when I was making my videos was to be too harsh or too overly critical of the church and their perceived intelligence. I didn't want to be too mean for perceived slights of tongue when they mess up saying a word or phrase, when they just like mow through some of the verses. A lot of that happens from time to time. It's totally fine. Since watching all of these videos, all of these streams, really dissecting and picking apart a lot more of their arguments outside of just the sermons that I was originally mentioned in or privy to, like really digging into the stuff, the weeds, I have come to the undeniable conclusion that their incuriosity about just everything, I don't want to call anybody stupid, but it makes them seem that way a fair amount of the time, and we're gonna see why.
No, if it's sunlight out and they come in and they have a gun or they have a knife or some kind of weapon to hurt you with, then just shoot them, kill them, make sure that they're dead, and that way they can't sue you afterwards. So that's what the police used to say to do. I mean, I don't know if they say that now. Now they just don't want you to defend yourself at all. Yeah, in Canada, if someone's trying to kill you, you can't kill them in self-defense with any weapon. Like you're just expected to run away and hope you escape or something.
Do I have any Canadians in the chat? Can you verify that Canada is a lawless Mad Max hellscape? Prometheus 1789. I live in Canada. I'm pretty sure that's not true. Okay, let's see what the old Google machine says. Canadians have a right to defend their property or themselves as long as their defensive actions are reasonable under the circumstances. This means if you injure an intruder entering your home or property, you would need to show that the circumstances gave you no other reasonable choice. So, like, literally everything, like, literally just a lie. Literally just a lie.
A lot of countries are like that. I think it's the same way in England, lots of different places. What did you say happened in Cincinnati? They told you what? Oh, make sure they're dead, yeah. Yeah. Well, in California, you can't, if someone is trying to kill you, you have to, the only way you can kill them in your own house is if you're trapped in a way that you can't get out of the house. So like if you're in the bathroom and you can't crawl out the window and someone's breaking the door down, it's like, then you can finally kill them. It's just like, how weird. Like if someone immediately, when they show a gun, you should be able to just shoot them dead or find some way to kill them. So, I mean, but they do this kind of stuff so that criminals can, this is like a planned thing by the devil. It really is. And it's unfortunate that, the places are going in this direction. I think the United States is trying to head in this direction. But in Texas, I believe that if someone just comes on your property and is threatening you, you can shoot them dead. Unless you go to Steadfast Baptist Church, and then of course they probably arrest you and throw you in jail and throw away the key. But
oh yeah, because they're so persecuted. Oh, why are they so mean to us?
That's the way it's supposed to be anyway. There's some laws that are like stand your ground laws, where I think in Florida they have the stand your ground law. I'm not sure if it's still in effect because that George Zimmerman guy killed that kid. Well, see, the media's brainwashed me. They showed a picture of what looks like a kid, but he was a grown man. But they fought and he killed the kid.
So you'll see now he's talking about George Zimmerman, who you'll remember hunted down, tracked down, and shot Trayvon Martin. And he is talking about, oh, the media's brainwashed me. It wasn't a kid. It was a grown man. Trayvon Martin was 17 years old, so still legally a child. In fact, I would say most people are children up until the age of probably 20. Like, even though legally you're an adult at 18, I feel like your brain is still real dumb around that point. Having known a lot of 17 to 20-year-olds, brain real dumb, not good.
And then it was like a big deal. And that kind of is what led into the George Floyd riots later on. But anyway, that's not what I'm preaching about. But
Now, remember before when I said I try not to be too picky. I try not to just like wall off and call people stupid. But he just said that George Zimmerman killing Trayvon Martin is what led to the George Floyd riots, which is not true, even a little bit. Those are a bunch of years apart. But here is another really great example of how they just say stuff. You know, they don't think about what they're saying, they just say stuff. Because it I guess reinforces their worldview.
Should be. Oh, I can't afford to pay for it. Well, guess what? You're their property now, and whenever you're done paying off the debt, I got some yard work you can do. I'll teach you how to do an oil change, and you can start changing, whatever you can do for me for a while. That's the way it was. You didn't just get to get.
So what he is literally saying is that if somebody steals, they should be sold into indentured servitude, or what he says is slavery. Like you are their prisoner until you feel that they've paid back their debt. Again, not really talking about the underlying effects of why a lot of people steal, which is poverty, which can be alleviated by a variety of factors, many of which he probably wouldn't care about. It's just like, man, no, I wasn't kidding. RPGs for finding out. I wasn't joking when he's like, yeah, well, we should just go back to the way it was. Slavery. It's like, he doesn't say slavery, but what he's talking about is slavery. Like, there's no tangible difference between what he's talking about and slavery. He is mentioning the stuff as it was in the Bible, where they were slaves. Going back real quick, as he's advocating for slavery, he goes on this little tangent where he writes some fan fiction about what it's like in the big house. What the experience is really like in the pen. And it has never been more clear to me that anybody has never had any kind of experience with somebody who's been in prison. Like, this is just, I'll let it speak for itself.
Happens in the prison systems. They're segregated by, white, black, Latino, Asian, or whatever, and then you're in a gang whether you like it or not. You might be a white non-racist and you're stuck with the skinheads. You're stuck with an Aryan nation. And then they're having you do things that you don't want to do. I mean, and God, we always teach this in Souling that God will punish his children and make sure they get caught doing stuff. So if you want to continue to just be a thief as a Christian, God's going to embarrass you. He's going to make you look stupid. Maybe you'll just get fired from.
Again, we see his just ability to go off on these weird tangents where he's like, yeah, and if we don't bring back indentured servitude, then they just go into the system. They just go into prison, and then before they know it, they're with the Aryan Nation, and they can't do anything about it. It's like, what are you talking about, dude? What is going on here? What are we doing? Stop it. Stop it. Yeah, no, Dustin the Damned, he got that from a TV show. Absolutely. No, not a question in my mind.
What did he teach? Baseline, absolutely normal socialist thought taught to every student in every school now. That's it.
There we go. That was the money shot, where he's like, Jim Jones, this mass murdering psychopath, basically teaches what every single school teacher teaches now. Like this, he was ahead of his time. Of course, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, dog whistle. But all right, he's going to say it again.
Path viewed in our last century is literally the common thought of every single teacher in America baseline. You are.
Did you hear that? The baseline, literally, not figuratively or metaphorically, literally is the exact same as Jim Jones, noted psychopath. Or at the very least, I'll give him sociopath. I don't think he killed anybody himself. It's just like, man, because Jim Jones might have had some leftist leanings, or might have taught some woo-woo BS back in the 70s or whenever, and had a cult that was open to everybody, which generally a lot of cults are. He is, in fact, and he talked against capitalism, which, again, you look at the socioeconomic and political place the country was at that time. You look at coming out of the Vietnam War. Like you look at, like that was after the sexual revolution. That was after the 60s, where so many more people became aware of how politics and the military industrial complex and economics all intermingled, especially with class struggles. Like, so duh, those things were coming more to the forefront of American politics. But to him, he's like, no, no, no. Jim Jones, because he recognized that, like all these other people, is the exact same as school teachers today. For some reason,
The slave communal compound,
I mean, it was just a
which is
commune.
very Marxist.
I don't.
All I'm saying is the last century has seen not the rise of Christian violence or Christian, ideology causing terror around the world, but we have certainly seen
Okay, hold up a minute, honey, because this church has literally inspired violent attacks, has literally called for violence. Anyway, what are you going to say next, pumpkin?
the ideologies or the Jewish fables of socialism, Marxism, and communism.
The Jewish fables. Isn't that great? How he's been building up to this whole time through all of this nonsense. He's really just been building up to, yeah, it's all the Jews' fault. Oh. Chef's kiss for nonsense. A+ for no effort.
10 years ago, there was no such thing as gender dysphoria. Didn't exist.
I hope everybody heard that. I know I have several trans people in my audience right now. Did you know 10 years ago there was no such thing as gender dysphoria? Did you know that? I wish there was no such thing as gender dysphoria 10 years ago. There was. But Jason thinks that is something that literally only popped up 10 years ago.
These wicked people. So I mean, we shouldn't be watching things like Netflix, okay, or any of these new, or heck, any Disney movie at all. Okay, Disney, Pixar, it's all coming from the same corrupt source. Okay, it's called Judaism.
Pew, 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 pew. That was the one. Did you hear that? We shouldn't watch any Disney or Netflix because it's all coming from the Jews. Disney, Netflix, the Jews. Let's get right into it, because from here, when I was watching this originally, I was like, he's kind of losing me. This is boring shit. This is really the diving board.
Stakes are really high. It's not like, if you allow yourself to be influenced by this world, you're going to be fine. Everything's going to end up being fine. Well, no, because you could send your little Johnny to school, and he goes to school 8 hours a day, and he comes home one day and says, "Mommy, I think I'm a girl." You see, the stakes are really high here. Yeah.
It's amazing how little agency they give to their own children. Like they seriously act like which is fair because they don't see their kids as anything but an extension of their property. Like, and if you've ever known conservative parents, you've known probably parents like that, where they don't respect the agency of their own child. They don't see their child as something with their own internal wants and needs and like a different understanding of the world. They see their child as an extension of their own belief system, of their own indoctrination, and which is why they're always just like shocked when the kid like goes off to college and it's like, oh, they've been brainwashed. It's like, no, they've just been different the entire time. You just didn't like care to notice that they're not you.
So the world says, hey, the women, they need to go out, they need to go to college, they need to stop being oppressed, don't let him hold you down.
You'll notice how we went on a tangent. I completely forgot we already brought up women. I completely forgot it. I thought we were back to queer stuff.
You need to show him who's boss. We need to, the we can do it thing or whatever.
This here, I need everybody to pay attention to this because this is one of my favorite things. Rosie the Riveter, he does not. I won't spoil it. I'll let him speak for it. But I want to say he does not seem to understand where Rosie the Riveter came from or what it signifies. And he seems to think that it has something to do with being transmasculine in a very bizarre way. I will let his attempted jokes speak for themselves, and I'll try not to interrupt here, because this is the thing that made me go like, oh, I need to, like the Jews running Disney section, that was a good tag. This is the thing that made me go, I need to show this on stream. Other people need to see this because I feel like I'm going insane. My brain is melting.
What's that poster? What does that poster say? Yeah. Rosie the Riveter, we can do it. Yeah, we're feminists. We can be men too. Very feminine men. You know, it's so bizarre. You know, in order to be a real woman, you have to be a man apparently. Or just growing a mustache help or whatever. You know, what if a woman puts on one of those fake mustaches? Is she a true feminist then? It's just weird to me. But the world says you need to go out and you need to start hammering rivets. You know, you need to get out there. You need to be like a blacksmith. You need to get that hammer with those, you know, with those leather gloves on. Just hammer. You know, I'm Rosie the Riveter. Yeah, women are free now. I can go work for my boss and let him tell me what to do. Woo! Being a woman's awesome. I'm liberated. You know, I've taken, 24 milligrams of testosterone every morning. I got a full-grown beard, even though I'm a chick. I'm liberated, bro. You know, and now my son's missing his junk because I sent him to public school. It's like, what in the world? I mean, how is that liberating? But you know what? We need to discard that and say, you know what? No, women are to stay at home with the children. And that's what the Bible says. The Paul said, I will that the younger women bear children and guide the house. Okay?
Yeah, so that's like there's just so much to dig into there, right? Like I paused it so many times through that. Like it is so 24 milligrams of testosterone seems like a lot. I don't know what trans mass people take. I am trans femme. I am on like 2 milligrams of estrogen a day. And that's it. So like 24 milligrams sounds insane to me. But also the idea that like Rosie the Riveter, who is a symbol of female empowerment, but like was some kind of propaganda symbol among feminists, and that like Rosie the Riveter was a good feminist, when really Rosie the Riveter was government propaganda, because a majority of the male workforce who is in manufacturing and textiles and everything was in World War fucking II. They were over in the European theater. They were over in the islands. They were in Peleliu. They were on Normandy. Like, so you had this huge like female workforce that was starting to enter the workforce across the 20s and 30s. And they had to go into industrial and manufacturing jobs because people needed to keep making things like cars and appliances and ammunition and guns and all that shit. I mean that. I thought he was just like being facetious, but as this goes on, I have reason to believe, I think he thinks Rosie the Riveter was like a suffragette movement icon. Like, I think that he believes she was like from the 1910s or 20s.
Honey? Come on, get with the program. Get with the, get with the.
And now he's talking about how conservatives are like, hey, don't be such a dick towards women. And he's like,
well, here's the thing about that is that God's truths don't change. Jesus said, I'm the Lord, I change not. Okay?
It's amazing how they know all like these tiny little verses that they can use to justify literally anything.
Okay, so if it was a bad idea to send out your daughter to be Rosie.
Fatally Bored, where does he think the first queer person came from?
Build the Titanic, Rosie.
He probably thinks it happened in the last 10 years.
If it was a bad idea in 1920 to do that, then it's a bad idea today. Okay, if it was.
So this is the thing that
okay.
Makes me think, if we'll listen to that again, this is the thing that makes me think he believes Rosie the Riveter was a suffragette movement thing.
To send out your daughter to be Rosie the Riveter in 1920, you're going to go build the Titanic, little Rosie. Apparently it wasn't strong enough,
And everybody laughed at that. Like, nobody was like, oh, that's a dumbass joke.
Bad idea today. Okay, if it was sinful back in 1920, it's sinful today. Okay, God hasn't changed.
Yeah. For reference,
so I talk about, you gotta go to college.
Brain Lord.
There's this guy out there.
Titanic was in 1912, so it's not even the right decade, you dipshit.
Oh, but it was a Christian college. Yeah, people go to Christian college coming out loving queers all the time.
All the time. Happens.
You're a fool if you think, well, that wouldn't happen to mine.
I was gonna say happens every day. You said it for me.
Your mind tells me that probably will. Saving up money so you can send your kids off to the brain defilement facility. Well, at least they're not in debt. Well, it might have been good for them to be in debt. If they're going to make the stupidest decision to go and enroll in college and go off and to beer pong university, maybe they should have a pile of debt that they need to pay.
He seems to think, again, for people who like decry and hate on media so much, I think they get all of their ideas about media or all of their ideas about the world from media. Like, I seriously think his only concept of college is from like watching Animal House
They're playing beer pong. And what do you think they're doing afterwards? They get all the girls over, they're all boozing up, right? I mean, where do all these stories of a rape culture on college campuses come from? Where does that happen? What happens at these beer pong?
He doesn't really care about that.
You know, I mean, do you think it's, well, those are just the bad kids. There's only like 10 of them. No. It's basically the entire university. Okay? It's where people got the idea that this is a good idea to send young people, you know, in their late teens and early 20s, send them off far away from their parents to some university of higher learning where they're all going to be together, you know, in this school where they have plenty of free time.
Why is school it's a school. It's accredited. Like, what do you want?
That's crazy.
So here's what I would like to say. The people who came up with that idea, if you want to get super technical, I'm sure there are like more answers. I think most people with a cursory education would say the Greeks, right? Greeks came up with the university kind of system, like people studying under philosophers and stuff, going off to learn, going off to do philosophy and art and all that stuff. That got passed down through, you know, generations, through empires. I would say probably like the British are the ones that we really base a lot of our schooling on, but we've had colleges in America for hundreds of years. He doesn't seem to realize, and we'll see in a second. I think he thinks, because he's asking literally, where did all these colleges come from? I think he literally believes that colleges are less than 100 years old.
Third of the Great Commission. Okay, and the part I want to focus on, because obviously there's preaching the gospel, there's baptizing people, and then there's also teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I've commanded you. Okay, that's part of the Great Commission. We need to get other people. We need to have them get.
I think this is a Baptist thing that is specific to them.
Helping people get wisdom with all you're getting, get understanding. Okay, you're out there getting stuff. You know, you're
again, just like the idea that you're like, you think you're going to go to college and get education, idiot? No. You need to get wisdom and understanding by listening to me tell you about this book that I am bad at interpreting.
To help them get understanding and get wisdom. And maybe you can get that little, you know, fire hose of God's word, just wash that part of their brain off, you know? Or at least try. You know, like, hey, may I open the
That is what we would call
wash that little part off,
indoctrination.
Or you just showed me the smut.
Okay, wait a second. Because he was talking earlier, I don't know, for the people who've been here for a minute, if you'll remember, he was talking earlier about how brainwashing facilities, like which is what he refers to schools as. He calls daycare don't care, and he calls school brainwashing facilities, but then he was like, oh, it actually doesn't make sense if you think about it, because they aren't really washing the brains, they're defiling them, they're making them dirty and inkling. However, in the metaphor he gave, which is to take a fire hose of God's word and spray it at the mind, that is literally describing brainwashing. His metaphor for giving people wisdom and having them live in God's word is to wash their brains. I got nothing. I got nothing for that.
You know what they're excited about this week? It's not soul winning. It's not the Bible. It's not church. They're just excited. They just, you know what? It's not that they just can't decide whether to go soul winning or go to church or read their Bible or which church to attend. They're having trouble deciding whether they're going to watch Barbie or Oppenheimer. And why? Why? Because that's what everybody's doing. Everybody's doing it, right? And most young people, all they want to do is just do what everybody else is doing. Well, you know what? If you're going to be a young person that just wants to do what everybody else is doing, then don't be surprised if adults treat you like you're just basically a lemming. And act like, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. You need to listen to us. We're guiding you.
Again, like all he's saying is that if you do things I disagree with, like go see Barbie or Oppenheimer, don't be surprised if we just treat you like you're an idiot. Like you don't have any faculties of your own. You don't have any agency because you're going to see movies. Now, here's the thing. You might be like, okay, being as Barbie is, as we all know, woke. I understand that. What problems, pray tell, does Steven Anderson have with Oppenheimer? I'm going to let that one speak for itself, honestly.
But from what I understand, this Oppenheimer film sounds like it's pornographic. Somebody said that it just seemed like they just put a naked person on the screen every few minutes just to keep you watching. It's like movies going along, nudity, here's more nudity, So you know what? Yeah, let's all go watch the latest Skin flick. Let's go watch. Who gives a crap about Oppenheimer? Nobody gave a crap about him until Hollywood says, ooh, Oppenheimer. Like, really? When was the last time you saw somebody just like wearing an Oppenheimer t-shirt, like a year ago? Or when was the last time somebody walked up to you and be like, hey, I was reading this book about Oppenheimer, it's really cool. Nobody gave a rat's whatever about Oppenheimer a couple of months ago, and nobody even knew who he was. If I would have just said, who is Oppenheimer, they would have just been like, oh. Wow, so he was at a nuclear test, and he quoted the Bhagavad Gita, satanic Hindu scriptures. He quoted satanic Hindu scriptures at a test of a nuclear weapon. Cultural phenomenon, let's all go watch it.
Couple things that you may have noticed. One, he basically calls Oppenheimer pornography, calling Oppenheimer, the film, a skin flick. Pretty weird, pretty strange. But then Pastor Anderson seems to think that that's all he did, that he literally stood at a nuclear test and quoted the Bhagavad Gita. However, if you've seen the movie, or if you have even a passing cursory knowledge of the history of physics in America, American scientists, American history in general, you'll know that Robert J. Oppenheimer is known as the father of the nuclear bomb. He was the primary inventor, I believe. This is the guy, American theoretical physicist, director of the Manhattan Project's Los Alamos Laboratory during World War II. He is often called the father of the atomic bomb. Dog, I don't miss. Come on, son. It's more than anything a show of desperation from Steven Anderson, because they always need to have some reason that they don't go see a movie. They need to have a reason, a steadfast reason that they won't go see something. They have to chalk it up to, there's sex. Oh, there's nudity. Oh, there's this. Even though there's like tons of sex in the Bible. One of the stories that I've told, or that they told during a sermon when I was infiltrating, one of those stories was about incest. It was about a brother lusting after his sister and doing really awful things, and they told it to a crowd of children. So that's what he thinks about Oppenheimer. Let's see what he thinks about the other half of Barbenheimer, Barbie.
It's so cool. What is this? No, people want to watch it. They want to watch people having sex on the screen for 15 minutes. That's what they want to do. The sinful heart of man wants to go to the movie theater, and they don't care about Oppenheimer. They're not just really interested in nuclear physics. They want to go down and watch people in a pornographic film because of the lust of the heart of man. That's it. Please explain to me why grown men are going to see a Barbie movie. Can somebody explain that to me? Because I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out why a grown man is like, yay, let's put on pastels and go watch Barbie. Isn't our world f***ing enough without a whole movie of a bunch of pastel dudes? And by the way, let me just explain to you something. Showing off your body in public as a man is a f***y thing to do.
Here's the thing. One of the things I really wanted to you may have noticed one corollary, one commonality, let's say, between all of the pastors is that they're fairly normal-looking dudes. And I want to cut Steven off before he launches into this, because this is important. They're fairly normal-looking dudes. That is to say that their body types range greatly, but none of them I would describe as particularly over-athletic. They're all roughly middle-aged men with families, responsibilities, jobs, and I'm sure the diet and exercise that for a lot of people comes with all that territory, which means some of them are a little bit more overweight than others. You can kind of see Steven not too terribly out of shape. He's got maybe a little bit of a gut. That happens as people get older. It's nothing to be ashamed of, Steven. But the way that he starts going off in this section about men who are like buff and take care of their bodies and show it off, it's really weird. So let's watch it.
You know what women do? Women show off their bodies. You know what men do? They don't do that. Men don't just go around just like, hey, look at my body. Let me just show you my physique. It's a thing to do. I'm just laying some real truth on you this morning. You know, real dudes are more interested in other things than staring at themselves in the mirror and preening. And you know what? Women, yeah, they may spend hours in front of the mirror worried about their appearance. You know, well, that can be overboard too. But when a dude does it, what are we doing, guys? If you're dressed, let's go. 5 minutes, let's go. You dressed? You got deodorant? You brush your teeth? Let's go. Let's roll.
Let's roll.
There, but then, you know, the teenagers today, here's what they want to tell me. No, you just don't understand. This new generation is more concerned about their appearance as dudes. Yeah, because it's a f***y generation. Yeah, I know.
This gives incredible does not wash his own ass energy.
I mean, you're just polluting the world. You're like, I don't see what you're saying. I'm saying that when we designed our infrastructure in this country, we did not plan that 50% of the population would go out and have access to cars and leave and go to work and then cram their, come back at the same time. We created most of the pollution by women leaving the house.
Is the argument he is going to make that if every woman stayed home and took care of their family, it would stop climate change? Good God.
This is a true thing. And had we just been keepers at home and done the biblical model, at least half of the cars wouldn't be on the road. Traffic would be better. The pollution that we keep hearing about, the global warming of carbon, would be vastly lower from a woman's life. Because here's the thing, and some women can have kids, so you're not bad if you don't. But understand, if it's you're trying to be a better person by not having kids, well, you failed. And do you know what the profit margin of the designer pet industry has increased? They cannot afford healthcare, and it's getting expensive, but we have pet insurance on the rise.
Who cares?
And here's the thing, well, vets are expensive too. Okay, there are pet psychiatrists that are booked out in Spokane for 9 months or something like that. Someone was explaining.
First off, a lot of animals, as somebody with a partner who's worked in pet rehabilitation, who's worked in the shelter system for an extended period of time, a lot of animals who are abused, who are adopted, need actual psychiatric care. They need somebody who's qualified to understand how to get them back to a point where they can trust other humans again. So that is, like, I know he wants to make it sound like, oh, there are people who are just like sitting down and talking to your dog and they're trying to talk about their feelings. Like, he's trying to make it sound as ridiculous as possible. It's really not. It's not that surprising.
You want to be woke and you're like, hey, we got to fight against the man. I guarantee you there is a man who can keep a straight face and be like, will you give me Fido and I'm going to make sure he barks a little bit less every single week. You just got to leave him here for 1 hour. We're going to talk it out. And you know what? Hey, guess what? A man's exploiting you.
What do you think a pet behavioral
All right, he's probably
coach
going to
is?
a fancy dinner. He's probably going to Chinese food to just, be funny about it. Like how could you stand with a straight face and be like, yeah, I ran some tests. He's actually stressed. Because he has a natural fear of the mirror, man. He's doing it because he had a bad experience in his childhood that he hasn't been able to address yet. And if you leave it with me, we're going to work it out.
Again, so what is going on here? All right, I need to see this from the top.
Who can keep a straight face and be like, will you give me Fido and I'm going to make sure he barks a little bit less every single week. You just got to leave him here for 1 hour. We're going to talk it out. And you know what? Hey, guess what? A man's exploiting you. A man's exploiting you, and he ain't taking you out to dinner. All right, he's probably going to a fancy dinner. He's probably going to Chinese food to just, be funny about it. How could you stand with a straight face and be like, yeah, I ran some tests. He's actually stressed. He's not barking at the mailman because he has a natural fear of the mirror, man. He's doing it because he had a bad experience in his childhood that he hasn't been able to address yet. And if you leave it with me, we're going to work it out. And really, I know when you look at that bill, it's going to shock you at first. But isn't love more important?
And scene.
Because you're misplacing it, because women need...
Again, it's so easy to just say something to disprove all this. But he would rather put on the show, and the people would rather be like, oh yeah, he's absolutely right. Like, it's ridiculous that anybody would do that. Yeah, it is ridiculous that anybody would do that. That's why people don't do that. It's not what pet behavior therapy is for. Like, it is for either rehabilitating and helping abused pets be able to trust humans again, or it's for just teaching pets and helping first-time pet owners. And I think you know that, Paul. You're just being disingenuous because you have a captive audience who will laugh at your jokes for once in your life.
Proverbs 31, But it's literally, if that is not the definition of a modern woman, I don't know what is. Loud, stubborn, not at home. Well, I've already covered all the destruction of the environment that she goes from not at home, but hey, she's loud. She's not meek. She doesn't develop kindness. A lot of times they don't even know, don't really know what they're doing. They just pick up a cause because their life is empty. They grab onto something and they go and try to be advocates for that. I mean, how much pollution and destruction was there in the past BLM riots? That was a few years ago.
Paul seems to think Antifa happened because women were bored, I guess. Like, he thinks the BLM riots happened because women, their lives were just so empty, so they just latched on to anything.
Let me tell you who wasn't there. Black men. It was white women. Like, I understand.
That looks like a African American man. Here's Philadelphia. That also looks like a African American man. As that last one was Philadelphia too. Here we have Los Angeles, Minneapolis, Los Angeles Times from Minneapolis. Interesting. We got another. This looks like a who are we talking to here? Let me go. We got some News. There's a young black man, and here's a black man, and they're on the shoulders of a black man. We got looks like a couple in the crowd there, black men. Hard to tell. Say racially ambiguous just from the distance. Oh, there's another black man. Probably a couple down here in the crowd. So I'm gonna say, Brother Paul, bullshit that the Black Lives Matter riots did not feature black men and were instead held by white women. Oh my God.